a tune!
Lovely.
That was Sweet Disposition by the Temper Trap.
And did they ever have another hit after that?
No, you don't need. Oh, you didn't used to need more than one hit. You do these days. But that is using the Boss Katana. This is the Boss Katana 100, and we also have a Nextone. Which Nextone model is it? There's a couple. What wattage is this one?
That's a very good question.
Is it the 40?
Yes.
It's the 40. Because they are the 40 and the 80 are quite. They look a similar size as well, but that refers to the wattage. And we're going to be doing this first episode. We're going to have a part 1 and part 2 of this. This is not a product review as such. What we're doing is trying to get different sounds from these two amps and also give our thoughts on them. We're not going to be listing specs and doing all the kind of stuff that you might see in a regular gear review, because this is another guitar show. We talk about how to make you guys better guitarists. And what we want to teach you guys is how to get different tones. What we hope we'll be able to do, I've got 4 presets already loaded into this Katana, and if you have a Katana at home, you will be able to, I'm confident anyway, you will be able to click the link at the top of the description here on YouTube, and then you'll be able to download these presets or patches for free, and then load them into yours, and you'll be able to sound like this, basically.
Sound like Andy.
And yeah, I know. What could be better than that? But also, we'll be showing you how to sort of, how to use amp settings and hopefully help you get a better sound and be able to sound like a few famous artists that we'll be listing in this episode, no matter what gear that you have. Therefore, I want to kind of preface this video with the most important thing that I think I've learned over the years about guitar tone and tone in general, is that no matter what amplifier you have, you kind of get out of it what you put into it. By which I mean that the type of guitar that you have, and perhaps most importantly, arguably, the pickups that you have in your guitar, are going to dictate the range of tone that you can get out of any amplifier, these very much included. And we'll sort of touch upon that a little bit further. But, we have an SG guitar here, and I think at some point we're going to try and get the SG kind of Angus Young AC/DC sound out of this one. And if we had, this Stratocaster or another guitar, it's not going to do that sound as well as an SG, or arguably the Gretsch that Malcolm Young has. The guitar does matter. And this episode is going to be mainly really nice and beginner friendly and quite obvious in that we're going to have lots of effects on this one. So this effect is a delay, which can be described very simply as delay, 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 or an echo type effect, which is different to reverb. A lot of people kind of get the two confused. Reverb is like a lot of little delays, but they are simulating different things really. Reverb is simulating a room sound or a hall sound, or it's digitally or somehow recreating that sound of being in a space.
Could you show that? Just if you really ramp the reverb up just for a second.
Well, I can turn the delay off and we'll just hear the reverb. So that is like I'm in some sort of bigger space.
Like space, exactly.
And on recording especially, and on this video, that probably sounds really kind of authentic. Here we're not hearing that sound all around us. We're hearing it just out of the amplifier, and we're not going to hear it at all. Only this.
Exactly.
Can't hear the tail. We need a really short impact.
That diffusion of sound. Yeah.
And if I now play the Temper Trap, it sounds like Happy Birthday or something. So I'm going to turn the reverb all the way down and take the delay as high up in volume as it can go. So this is the delay effect volume. And if I just take the delay volume down,
too much?
Still there. So we can hear the delay, but the delay volume isn't enough for us to kind of hear, to create that rhythmic
because
effect.
It's like a part, it's like another guitar almost with the volume set like that.
Which is all the delay is really.
There we go.
And then it's suddenly more than the sum of its parts. And the other thing that I've done there, again, you can download this kind of patch, but there's a tap tempo on here. And the way that I've used this to get that sound is not actually tap the tempo of the song, which will be dun 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 1 2 3 4, kind of that tempo. 130 BPM, something like that. I'm actually tapping the tempo that I want the rhythm of this to be. So dun 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 dun. That will create the tap. And if I did this way too slow, 1, 2, suddenly the delay time, the time of the delays has gone bigger, and suddenly it doesn't sound right. It's kind of changed.
I think the song would have been a hit if it was like that.
So da 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 da, something like that. A little bit too slow. Oh, let's have a listen to that because that's really close. But the effect, the riff isn't there. It's kind of cool. So maybe a bit quicker. Dun, 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 dun. There it is. Maybe it's a little fast. I did this better before. Hang on, I'm going to go back to my preset.
Hey,
that's why you downloaded the preset.
That's exactly why you download the preset.
And of course, that is doing a kind of impression of what the Edge used to do. And also, what's the other song called?
Why are you asking me?
Name that riff.
Oh,
that is "Shut Up and Dance with Me" by Lord knows who, because that really was a one-hit wonder. But there's one other thing that I would like to comment on kind of tone-wise, and the reason why people buy certain gear is to sound like certain players. Something like the pick and how you use a pick, I think, can really influence the tone. So if I play like this riff from With or Without You normally, and then I play it using the serration of the pick here. This is a Dunlop Maxi Grip pick. Particularly on the thinnest two strings.
Bites out.
I've heard on the grapevine that's how the Edge gets a lot of those kind of type of sounds.
Serration on really the edge of the pick.
Getting that and the scraping.
It's like the print, like the kind of logo print on the thing, right?
Yeah, but it is raised up as well. There is a certain grip on it. And we're scraping the pick against it, as opposed to...
I can actually hear the pick scraping.
As opposed to that.
It's much softer, much more brittle.
Absolutely. I think we've all got tutorials on most of those songs. Any of those that we do have, we'll link to in the description below. But that was sort of it's a really obvious one not to cover. And if you delay is one of the most obvious effects, but also it's misunderstood because if you don't know how to use it with delay time and things, you kind of can't use it. And every other effect, or many of these other effects, and especially when we talk about modulation type effects, they're almost a variation on delay, it would be argued.
Yes.
Reverb is a lot of little delays, which is how we get kind of, that room sound, that sparse, that kind of sound. That's a lot of little delays altogether. Again, like simulating a room sound. Something like a chorus, which should be, hang on if I put that on green.
So chorus is like the next kind of big obvious effect.
How would you describe what a chorus is, Thomas?
It's weird. I know what it does. It's very hard to describe, isn't it? It kind of like thickens it up.
There's multiple, or at least two, of the same sound, very slightly delayed. So it's like having two sounds, but one slightly out of phase, or it could be perfectly in phase. You can change them to get different types of chorus effects. But it's like a chorus of singers, I guess. More than one part of the same part.
Yes.
And that doubling creates this kind of artificial. This kind of sound, the most famous of which, I guess, would be this little very easy part in Smells Like Teen Spirit. And if I was to take that off altogether, which I think is that one, and I would probably just, that's a totally clean guitar sound. I'm on the clean setting here. But then you would basically get the... expected to kick in, and at the press of a switch. And you can even do that on a foot switch, which is the reason, or one of the main reasons I would argue to go for the Katana 100 if you want to do that type of... If you want to change effect during the same song, don't want to have to push a button like I've done.
That's going to be pretty tricky if you're playing with two hands.
It's possible, and again, if it's just for home practice, it's not the worst thing in the world, but I think that's part of the point, or part of the reason why the Katana 100 is a bit more expensive and has those other capabilities. The Katana 50, I think I'm safe in saying, is like the #1 beginner amplifier of the moment, and has been for at least a couple of years now. It is the only one that people are recommending, and absolutely rightly so, I would argue. It does a lot of different sounds, and for that sub £200 or $200, I guess, price range, which it absolutely is in. Again, prices vary retailer for retailer.
Yes,
Apologies, I'm not used to doing gear videos and things like that. We don't normally talk about them on this show. But it has to be said, we highly recommend the Katana 50 as a beginner amplifier. Absolutely. And it is a sterling upgrade. It's a fantastic upgrade from the kind of amplifier that you might get in a starter pack or something that's kind of this big.
Little tiny cube.
Bigger speakers are always going to make it sound better anyway. And this is a really good job, in my opinion as well, of simulating the sound of recordings. Yeah. I think it really, really does a stand-up job like that. The Nextone, in my opinion, sounds a bit more like a guitar player's amplifier. It does have some effects on, it does have delay, it does have reverb, but other than that, it's just trying to simulate at least the valves and the sound of other kind of famous or classic amplifiers. Bit more stripped down, bit more plug and play. All these buttons and switches on here can really confuse people.
You've got a massive variety on that amp as well.
But it's the good and the bad thing about it. It will be daunting to some people, but these downloadable patches, and again, just showing you the settings on the screen as well, should really help you guys kind of out. Let me go through those different effects in there. What song am I thinking of? Smells Like Teen Spirit is just one of those songs where we've got arguably four classic kind of tones all in one song. And it's when electric guitarists in particular start to learn those sorts of songs where they think, I need an amp that has multiple channels, so same amplifier, but different channels, different presets kind of going along each of them. So essentially the first sound of it, right at the start of the song, is just, not delay, let me turn all that off. I'm going to take the gain down a little bit. I'm also going to take the guitar's volume back a little bit, because it is very quiet, and it's so clean that it's sort of got that kind of sound to it. The second main sound in this song is just that kind of heavier, which I think is on this channel. I don't even want to know if this is right or not. I just think this is an amazing story that they apparently had 11 amplifiers in the studio. Yeah. Kurt Cobain's guitar is plugged into all 11. They're all cranked up. They mic them all up, and that was the sound of Smells Like Teen Spirit. I don't care if that's wrong. That's just too good a story. My drummer told me that when I was 15, and I'm just choosing to believe it, no matter what the internet says. And hopefully it sounded a bit like... Yes.
Beefy, isn't it?
Yes. Little things like, well, put it this way, let's have a listen to this. That sound, it was screaming even more earlier, has to be sort of muted. So when you start to get an amplifier with that amount of gain, close an overdrive, start to have to do this a lot more. And these single coils, what do we get?
Yeah, nothing but hum.
We get hum. What pickups do you have on that guitar?
These are humbuckers.
They buck the hum is kind of the idea of them.
It's just quiet. It can take all the drive without screaming at you to stop.
Because if nothing else, we do constantly kind of get a hum with many single coiled guitars. Now there's infinite variations now, and there's many ways that people have come up with of stopping that hum on single coiled guitars. But that's the sort of principle behind them, and you can kind of see that we've got two
kind of where you've got
almost
one
like you've got two single coils there, two magnets next to each other, double the signal, half the hum. I believe is or cancelling the hum out is the logic behind that. The other obvious sound of this song, very easy. Nice anybody can play that part. We could arguably, let's just have a listen of what that chorus is kind of doing. So that is at maximum, and that's just kind of too wobbly,
too alien,
too much. Yeah. I am. We come in peace. So just a little bit less.
Yeah, that's kind of hitting it right.
And that's often, sometimes when we have just one, an area of a knob essentially controlling certain things, it can change. It's not always consistent what it's changing. Sometimes it's changing the volume of that effect, how much of it there is, and sometimes it's changing something in the range of it, the time of the effect again. That's what that is changing there. That is changing how many of these wobbles are in the wave, essentially, in the sound. And then we've got those two kind of combined for the chorus, or for the main solo. Doesn't want to scream at me today. That was my favourite guitar solo, kind of the first time that I was playing in a band. And it's gain all the way up. We're on the Brown sound. Well,
God knows what that means.
Do you not know about the Browns? I would argue that the Brown sound is that kind of Marshall ACM 800.
I think it's earlier than that.
Okay. The valves of a big kind of old Marshall amp is the Brown sound. Kind of really heavy, but still plenty of mids. Not necessarily that mid-scooped American sound. And yes, that also has a chorus, or you could put any kind of effect to make it sound kind of crazy. I think it sounds a bit like surfing with the Alien. That's what it makes me think of, Surfing with the Alien by Joe Satriani. But yes, it has kind of a lot of bells and whistles on this one, and I want to bring it back a little bit to what the guitars bring to this when we have so much the amplifiers do. So Thomas, you're going to kind of give us a AC/DC kind of Angus Young Highway to Hell sound, aren't you? Which you have a tutorial for.
I do indeed.
Give it a blast. It's one of my favourites.
Nice.
So I've put it on the Brown sound there. The crunch, because I've got single coils, wasn't quite giving me enough. And I've taken the trick with single coils is sometimes to take the tone down a little bit. Yeah. But what that sounds like is an SG.
Yeah, it actually sounds like
an AC/DC, and suddenly it's just kind of there. Yeah. So what are we using on the amplifier to get that sound?
So we're sitting on this is very hard to read upside down, EL34, which is what?
It's like a Marshall.
Like a Marshall.
So that's what was in the Marshall Plexis as well. and it's been EL84s in most Marshalls. 34, sorry, in most Marshalls over the years. And what this kind of claims to do is simulate at least the valves of the Marshall, a Vox, and then a high-powered and a low-powered, or high-gain and low-gain American-style amplifiers.
Yeah, so we've actually got kind of a split on the amplifier styles, American and British. So you get those slightly different tones across there in the styles of that rock sound, really, because that's where it's going to come out most.
Now, one thing that I would argue is that the high, on the American side especially, we have kind of a cleaner amplifier and then a more overdrive amplifier, but this amplifier does not claim to simulate those amplifiers exactly.
No, that's the point of it.
So when we click between them, one criticism that I thought of with this amplifier was that there wasn't a clear enough difference perhaps between them. But it's not, it's because when you click between them, you're not adjusting the gain.
Yeah.
And again, put a different guitar into it. This is acting more upon the subtleties of what you would want from a real amp, a bigger, more expensive amplifier. You want these subtleties.
Different guitars, different gains.
This does a lot of that, but it would be something like that has the detail and character.
It's going to react a little bit differently each time. Yeah. But even then, I mean, the gain, we're only at kind of 12 o'clock in the gain. So kind of about, halfway up. What's that? 7 o'clock is 0. 12 o'clock is kind of halfway up.
12 o'clock. And it's a good starting point to see what an amplifier can do. Put the gain in the EQ and
we don't want
at 12 o'clock.
A lot of people
see what. Yeah, don't default to that. See what it does. But again, you've turned the gain right up.
Exactly.
There's no hum.
But like you said, a lot of people go, give me the gain, chuck it the whole way up. It's like, pull it back a little bit, let the characteristics of the amp or the gain channel itself jump out a bit more and play around with it. Like what was it you said? You get as much out of them as you put into them.
Exactly.
You
can only get out of an amplifier what you put into it, including the playing side of things. And often people try and mask a lot of that with just turning the gain all the way up.
Just screeching it up.
But then you have to kind of tame the beast. You have to do more muting, and you have to think: have I only got that one string ringing out?
In some ways,
always the thing that I was pointing out to students over the years that really started to play lead guitar, started turning the gain all the way up, and suddenly you had all kind of like this all the time. They'd have the thicker strings ringing out, or thinner strings ringing out, and it's kind of like I'm playing like this. Thumb over the thicker strings, thumb over the thicker strings here. This guitar is not making a sound unless I kind of let it. And
apart from the helicopter sound coming out.
If we're quiet now. And that is the phaser I think I've got on that, or a chorus or something. So yes, that's the end of this episode, which has been more on these very obvious sounds and the things that everybody needs to kind of watch out for when they're looking at effects and getting into this world of lead guitar and what these things are capable of. The next episode, which will follow on next Sunday, will be more on the subtleties and characteristic of amplifiers and players that we're trying to simulate essentially with these amplifiers or the gear that we have. So it will be a little more subtle, but I think it will again be such a key thing to know the difference, not just between a clean amp sound and overdrive sound, but how we can get characteristics, as I say, of certain amplifiers and certain players, hopefully, no matter what gear you guys have. That's the end of this episode. Please subscribe to the Your Guitar Academy website and YouTube channel and the Andy Guitar YouTube channel. These and other Guitar Show episodes ping pong between the two channels every Sunday. This is your free 30-minute guitar lesson every week, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.